This podcast is a member of the Place to Be Nation family. Visit us at placetobenation.com, the only place to be in your pop culture world.
Place to Be Nation, welcome back. We're glad you're still here with us for another episode of I, of course, am one of your hosts, Miranda, and I'm here with my wonderful, amazing friend in real life as well, Bianca. Bianca, how are you doing?
Cheers in the background. Woo! We're just in silly, goofy moods today.
It is 10:42 in the evening for me. It is 43 degrees and raining, so...
Well, it's 90 in Florida and super sunny. I'm in a tank top and shorts.
I am in sweatpants and a sweatshirt and 2 pairs of socks because I need new socks. They don't have holes. They're just thin. They're just like thin summer. Yeah.
It just means you're entering spooky season when you're supposed to.
I am entering spooky season. And with spooky season, we have 2 months, this one and next one, of very entertaining books, rather, and also movie. We're going to switch things up a little. I know that you guys have come to love the last couple of episodes flow, the way that we've done things. I really appreciate the feedback. I want to say shout out to our best friend Suzanne and the wonderful Ellen, both of you, like complimenting us and giving us feedback on the episode. You both rock.
Ellen started following me on Goodreads. I just got a notification. I was like, who's Ellen?
Ellen is fantastic. She's super sweet. We both have a lot in common with her. It is actually our illustrious leader Andy's girlfriend.
Hey, Ellen.
Hey, Ellen. She is fantastic. She and I have a lot in common, so I know you guys would have a lot in common as well. And she's been listening, and she gave us compliments, so thank you. Susan always gives us compliments, but because she's loved us, so I tell her she's biased, but she did say we were great, so I'm going to take that.
I mean, we're always great.
We are pretty great. But we're going to switch things up a little bit, so I hope that you guys enjoy it. And for the next 2 months, we have actually read the same book. We're here to discuss it, and both books have an adaptation to them. So we won't really have too much of an adaptation minute. I know there's a thing that Bianca and I want to discuss quickly in regards to adaptations. But for the most part, this episode and the next one, and to be honest, we haven't really planned after that. We were prepared for spooky season, people. Okay. So we have read the same book, for the next 2 months that both have an adaptation. They both are kind of spooky, cozy-ish, one more than the other, and very fall, in both senses. So, is there anything, do you want to talk real quick about the thing that we had discussed in text message, actually, with our friend Susan, before we move forward? That way we don't get too bogged down. It was a discussion about adaptations, actually.
Yeah, so we're still doing Adaptation Minute. It's just a shortened one. Well,
it's shortened with us. Shortened for us, and we're going to do it first here really quick so that we can really get into the meat of our book. But we had a discussion. One of our friends, or our friend Susan, there we go, had sent us the link to a new movie or book that's being turned into a movie adaptation. Well, I don't know. It may be a TV series. They haven't really said.
Hold on, let me see. This is what Google's for.
Okay, she's going to Google, but while she's doing that, so it is being turned into made for you on your screen of some sort. And they're kind of looking at a specific actress. So it's the selection series.
Google says movie.
Movie, okay. It's selection series. Help me with her name. It's Cass.
Sadie Sink.
No, the author.
Oh, Kierra Cass.
Kierra Cass. Okay, thank you. I wanted to see Sierra, and I knew that wasn't right. I loved the series. Fantastic series. It is considered YA. It is kind of like post-apocalyptic in some way, kind of, sort of. It's like a thing has happened.
I would say it's more dystopian than post-apocalyptic. Yeah,
that's the word I was looking for. So it's like YA dystopian, based around a prince that has to find a wife, and the selection series or the selection process that goes with that and forward. So it's like very basic, but I highly recommend it. And the whole reason it got brought up is Sadie Sink, who is known pretty much for Stranger Things, the last couple of seasons of it at least, is being looked at as the main character in the book. And I did comment and say she does look like what I kind of envisioned the character would, to an extent. I thought of someone a little bit taller, with a little bit more muscle on her. And that's no offense to Sadie, but like that's just like in your brain. And we talked about this, I think, a couple episodes ago. As you're reading, sometimes it doesn't matter how the author describes someone to you. You just pick someone, you create this image in your brain. But Sadie is pretty close to what I had pictured as the character of this book. And Bianca brought up a really good point. I'll let you explain what your point was when we were discussing adaptations.
And I'll go ahead and preface by saying I love Sadie. I love her in Stranger Things. I loved her in the All Too Well short film. Shout out to my Swifties out there. She's perfect. I have nothing against her. Mm-hmm. It's just that the Selection series was one of my first like diehard YA deep dive reads. Like I was obsessed with this series when it was late teens, early 20s. I don't remember when I read it.
Sorry. If you're not new here, you know what that's about.
But since I have such a love for it, I wanted someone with a no name to be considered for it, just because I don't want people watching it just for Sadie. Because like I know she'll bring people in to watch it and that it will get coverage for that reason. But then I don't want someone to just rip it apart just because Sadie was in it, and whether it's good or bad.
Right.
Like I would just rather have a no name attached to it.
And I agreed with you. And my comment to you was that I'll just read it. I said, I think it's hard to hear someone that's known or starting to be, at least, taking the lead when they do an adaptation of some sort. You kind of then feel like people will flock to it who will not appreciate or understand. And then they're going to either criticize it unfairly or harshly. And I think this has happened before. I don't know how you feel, but I think it has happened before. I feel like I've seen it before. It happened with Twilight, which I know people have one way or another on that one, but it's an example. It happened with Twilight. People were so anti-Kristen Stewart that I think sometimes it's judged a little too harshly.
Yes.
I feel like that could also be said of the Divergent series.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which I think part of the reason why the Divergent adaptations tanked is because people couldn't stand Shailene.
There's a lot of people that feel very strongly one way or another about her. I knew who she was because I had watched Secret Life of the American Teenager. It's no surprise. I love like teen drama shows, especially teenage drama like mystery shows. But she was in the Secret Life of the American Teenager as the main character of the show. And I liked her on there, but then as a person in interviews and stuff, she's not my favorite person.
No.
But I think that happens because at the time Shailene was known. I think it's a lot like Sadie. Sadie is known by a select group of people who are definitely going to watch it because she's in it. But I do. So I just wanted to throw that out. We wanted to talk about that. Like, how do you guys feel if something of yours is being turned into a movie or a television series? Would you rather it be like a complete no name so that they can like almost make a name for themselves, hopefully, or would you rather it be someone that is a little bit known, or would you prefer the whole opposite end of the spectrum and it be like a big name? Because I think that's happened before too. There are books that have been turned into movies that I think they put a big name on it, and I don't know. I think you get a whole bunch of fan people that are only there for that person.
Yeah.
I don't know. It makes me strange. Yeah.
Well, an example of that would be the Hunger Games with Jennifer Lawrence. She was already kind of known.
Oh, absolutely.
Before Hunger Games. Like didn't she win an Oscar like 14 or something for Winter's Bone? Wasn't it Winter's Bone?
I think I can't be certain on that one.
But
yeah,
anyways,
she was already pretty well known when she was selected for Hunger Games. At least in the movie world. She wasn't somebody like I knew kind of her. when she went into Hunger Games, but I didn't really like. No, I did. No, okay, yeah. So I think she had already kind of developed a name for herself.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of why she was chosen.
Yeah, and I do think that those are judged less harshly than the other two examples that we brought forth. And then another example, the book The Host, where they picked people that were not known, and it didn't do well.
To be fair, I don't think that book made a great adaptation either way. Like, don't get me wrong, I love that book.
Oh, me too.
I reread it numerous times.
Yeah,
but I cannot conceptually see a way where it is a good adaptation.
I think it could have been, but it needed to have been a television show. One of the things that you and I have spoken about prior in, I don't remember what episode. I know we're only on like number 5 here, or 4. Anyway, but I don't remember when we talked about it, but we did talk about sometimes when you're in an adaptation, things happen where if you've read the book, you understand what's going on. And I remember using Twilight as an example. And I know people are like, oh my God, I hate it. Why does she keep talking about it? Because it is like, to me, it is the prime example of how leaving one small thing out changes an entire scene.
It really does.
And it did. And so I think with The Host, there were tiny little things that happen in the book. Like when she's like, when they're running from danger and they're like in the stores and like taking out things that you don't see happen in the movie, that I think if were explained a little bit more, she would seem less whiny. The situation would seem more dire. Yeah, like all around, I think. So television series where you have more time, you've got, say, 10 45-minute episodes, it gives you more time to explore those minute details. And that is also what I worry with adaptations. Not only picking the wrong person, a big name or a kind of sort of name that's going to get the wrong attention, but also doing it in the wrong manner. The Selection series being one of them, that could easily be a television show. There's things that happen in the hallways in the book that, like, maybe it only takes 2.5 minutes of your reading time across 2 or 3 pages, but it makes it's without the context of the person hiding in the hallway and hearing the I'm thinking of a specific part, but I don't want to ruin any of it. But like there's you probably know what I'm talking about, but it happens often in the series where people are lurking in the shadows, listening to the conversations happening in the hallways of the castle where they think no one is listening.
Yeah.
And if that's not done right in the movie, it'll just, everybody will be like, well, I don't understand why this is a big deal. It was a big deal because so-and-so overheard what they weren't supposed to. Yeah. And it even in the Harry Potter, there's one of the movies that I get very heated about. I'm very passionate about. And when it's the Triwizard Tournament, or not the Triwizard Tournament, the one with the big Quidditch game, because there's a whole little house elf that gets, like, she's just kind of not even mentioned.
You're talking about Order of the Phoenix, I think.
Yes, Order of the Phoenix. I knew it was not the tournament, but I was trying to say tournament, but Quidditch, they go to the for real Quidditch match. And that one aggravates me as well because they leave out that one person, that one little detail that actually in the book makes the whole freaking story.
Yeah.
So that's the kind of where we wanted to go with this, is like talking about the selection of a person, or the selection of, should it be a show or a movie. So I kind of want to hear from you guys, and then I'd love to hear examples from you guys as well. Like, what do you think did really well? Obviously, we all know Harry Potter did it really well. They did some things wrong, but at the end, you can't do everything perfect. Harry Potter's one that done really well. I feel like Lord of the Rings was one that was done really well. Do you have another one that you feel like was done really well?
I think Hunger Games was done well.
I would agree with that. I'm trying to think.
We're going to talk about one today, if we want to go ahead and transition, that was not done well.
We were going to talk. Yes, we are. We're going to talk about one that I'll be honest, I know I watched the adaptation, but I don't remember much about it, and I think that speaks volumes. I also will say I read the book once before, So this
Yeah,
was
we
a
both
reread
read
for
this
me.
book before. Yeah.
So this was a reread, but I will say I remembered nothing. I remembered very little about this. I remembered like the beginning more than I did anything. And the book that we're discussing today, Bianca, do you want to tell the boys and girls what we're talking about today?
It is Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children by Ransom Riggs.
Yes. Which is actually critically acclaimed. I believe it has won a few awards. I'd have to get my Google Foo up. But it was perceived really well in the book world. It does have a sequel. I remember.
It's a whole. I think it has 5 books in the series, maybe 6 now.
Is it really? Oh goodness,
Yeah.
grief, jeez.
I know. I own at least 5, if not 6. Have I read them all? No, but they are there waiting for me.
I do not. I own book number 1. It is part of my collection in the U.S. I do think the cover is pretty fantastic. I will give it that.
I love all of the covers for this series.
Yeah. I will say I saw them laid out on a table. This has been some time ago, so maybe there were only like 3 or 4 of them. Because you're right, I do remember seeing multiples now. And I remember seeing them laid out on a table at like Barnes or something. And I
do want to speak real quick to the cover / the pictures that are included in the book.
Yes.
For those who have not read the book, there are photographs to show as, quote, evidence of the strange things that happens in the story. And I just want to read a quick little excerpt about these photographs.
Sure.
This comes from page 350 of the Miss Peregrine Home book. All the pictures in this book are authentic, vintage found photographs, and with the exception of a few that have undergone minimal post-processing, they are unaltered. They were lent from the personal archives of 10 collectors, people who have spent years and countless hours hunting through giant bins of unsorted snapshots at flea markets and antique malls and yard sales to find a transcendent few rescuing images of historical significance and arresting beauty from obscurity, and most likely the dump. Their work is an unglamorous labor of love, and I think they are the unsung heroes of the photography world. And then it goes on to list who donated or who let them use these pictures. Most of them are Robert Jackson, Peter Cohen. A couple of them are from the author himself, Ransom Riggs. Then there's 1 or 2 that are random people, but those are the bulk of them. So all of these photos are real and most have been unaltered.
Yes.
And that includes the cover.
And they are fantastic. I feel like a lot of them would have been from, they've been unaltered, but obviously there was something special done to create them in the manner that they were when they were originally photographed. I also felt like maybe some of them were from sideshows, which used to be a big deal. You know, people joke about the bearded lady or the kid with, you know, lobster claw hands or just various different things. And they were real. Sadly, because I know people are going to be like, yeah, they were disturbing. Sadly, they were people usually with like a deformity, a birth defect. I don't want to say defect. I hate that word. But I don't know how else to describe it.
It would remind me, if you've seen the movie The Greatest Showman, it's people like that.
Yes.
Where mostly ordinary people with just a few quirks. Like, I'll even use myself as an example. So I can pull my arm all the way around my head and touch the ear that is above the shoulder of the arm that I'm using. So I have extremely long arms. So I'm sure if I did that back in 1910, I would be considered a sideshow freak as well.
Probably. Same. I have this thing where if I lean on a table, so you know how you put your hands, like your fingers facing towards you and you lean on a table, my arms are double jointed, and they do this weird hyperextension thing. And I have a lot of friends that used to be totally gross. Like we'd be at school, like working on a project together, and I'd like lean on a table like that. And people would be like, oh my God, stop. And to me, I was like, what? Because my arm it bends. You've seen it. You were even like, does that hurt? And I'm like, well, so like, I'm sure they would probably also be like, something's wrong with her. Not just for that reason, but I digress. So there are peculiars, and then that's what they are called. So to me, the photos are representative of probably photos that were taken from people that were a part of the sideshow or something similar, or a photographer playing. Photography was very special, and not that it's not now, but it was much, much different when you're looking at the type of photos that they used, how it was done, how long it took, things of that nature. So maybe it was the photographer playing, seeing what he could come up with. And then I believe in a lot of unexplained, like the world of the unknown, and I think things are possible that people just don't believe in. So could it be real? Who knows? That's for you guys to decide on your own.
Imagination.
Yes, use your imagination. The basic plot of this book is we have our main character, Jacob Portman, and his whole life he's been fascinated with his grandfather Abraham's stories about surviving as a Jew during World War II. He tells them about running from man-eating monsters and living with peculiar children in a secret home guarded by a wise old bird. Of course, Jacob grows older and he kind of begins to doubt these stories, and he thinks that it's just his grandfather's way of how he dealt with, obviously, living in the world that he did as a Jew during World War II. I can't imagine, and I would probably also, if you were a survivor, create stories out of what you went through to cope, right? And
it's a normal coping mechanism.
Oh, absolutely. And that's where he believes this is going at this point. Jacob actually comes from a pretty affluential family. They have money, but Grandpa's kind of off his rocker at this point, or at least that's what they all believe, because now he's talking more and more about they're coming to get me, the monsters. So they believe he's just kind of hit his end. So we'll just kind of start out. Grandpa calls him while he's at work. He has this stock boy job that he absolutely hates. He's like, what, 16, I believe?
He's 15, about to turn 16 at the very beginning of the book.
Yeah. So he's 15, 16 years old. He has this stock boy job that he absolutely hates, but the reason he has it is because his family literally owns the company. And when I say company, I pictured kind of like a CVS store. I don't know what you pictured.
It's called Smart Aid.
Yeah, so I was thinking like
picturing
Friday,
like a Walgreens or
something like that. His family literally owns them, so it's not like a mom and pop. It's like they own all of them, and they even explain that. Yeah, it's a chain. I'm very wealthy. Like it's going to get passed down to me. Like, but I don't want to be here. And so he does things to try to get fired, but he can't get fired. And Grandpa calls and is like, they're after me. You know, his dad's like, look, I can't leave work. I can't leave what I'm doing. Can you go? And they kind of, I'll go ahead and bring that up. They kind of made me angry about the dad, because they keep just basically describing him, especially at the beginning, like it's his mom's family that owns all of this, isn't it?
I thought it was the dad's.
No, okay, so I'm not sure. Forgive me, people. I thought it was the mom's family that owns like all the store and stuff, and they have all the money, because they keep talking about he just keeps working on his ornithology books and how he's trying to make it big in the ornithology world.
Well, see, I thought it was because it was money. I thought it was because of that it was the dad's, and he could just step back from the company and let it run itself. I don't know.
No, I think the mother is the one that like the money came in, because there's no way it would be the dad, because Grandpa is his dad. That's right. Yeah, Grandpa that we're talking to, Mr. Portman, is his dad. And his dad would have been off chasing monsters and stuff that we'll get to in a minute. Yeah. So that's why his dad can, like, his mom's basically the breadwinner. Like, she's loaded. For my understanding, now that
you explain that makes perfect sense. I don't know why I thought it was his dad's family.
But I kind of hated it because they make it sound like his dad's just this doof. Which, if he's like big into ornithology and photography, then he's a smart man. Like, you have to. It's a scientific thing, right? Like, he's not an idiot. So
yeah, but there's a difference between book smart and common sense smart.
There is, but if later on, and maybe you'll agree or disagree with me, but later on, he has common sense. Like, he's trying to take very good care of Jacob. Like, he has common sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I just didn't like at the beginning how they just make him sound like, they kind of just make him sound like a freeloader, basically. They make him sound like, oh, yes, it is the mom. Because remember how he talks about throwing the party and she always has to show everybody, like, let's walk around and look at what I bought in France.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So Jacob's dad and basically is like, I can't go check on him. Can you please take care of it? He gets there. He can't find Grandpa anywhere. His friend is helping him. It basically describes him as like a loner stoner friend.
When I read him, I pictured, what's his name from Stranger Things?
Which one?
Have you seen the newest season?
I have not, because Caden.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Long story short, Caden's decided he wants to be part of it, so now I'm starting at the beginning from him so that we can watch the new thing together. But I'm sure you're talking about Eddie, because, I mean, you can't not. Okay.
No, I'm talking about Argyle. So, yeah, for those who have watched Stranger Things Season 4.
Yes, because you can't get on the internet and not be told things. I know who you're talking about. That would be a perfect description. So yes, that would be perfect. And they basically tell, like, it's his only friend. Like, his only friend. Which kind of already lends you, like, if you pay attention to that as the story goes and you remember that, it kind of leads you to, like, why we end up where we do. But they get there, they cannot find Grandpa anywhere. There's, like, a weird cut in the screen door.
Well, the house in the yard is completely trashed.
Yeah, everything's trashed. And Grandpa lives in a gated community that's, like, for seniors. So, like, it would be hard for somebody. Yeah, in Florida. So,
I'll point out the Florida part.
Yeah, because he talks about that. He talks about the heat and, like, how there's none of this or none of that. He talks about the things that aren't there because it is a senior living facility in Florida. It's not like a facility, but it I don't know. Correct me if I'm wrong. He talks about the house. So I was thinking more like one of those gated communities where everybody that lives there, like their house is, they're an older person, but they have their own home. They have like a retirement community kind of.
Yeah, basically.
Okay. House is trashed, like beyond trashed. The door has a slash in it. Like the screen door. Grandpa's nowhere to be found. Weird storm rolls in, so they grab flashlights, and he finds Grandpa basically on death's bed. Looks like he's been attacked by, I don't know. In my brain, I was thinking, I'll see what you think. I know we're talking Florida, different spot, but like in my head, I was thinking like almost like what would happen if like a mountain lion or
because he's got
something
a huge,
like that.
He's laying in the woods, completely like not just like on the edge of the woods. He's like deep in the woods.
In them.
And he's got a slash on his chest, and it looks like he had like tripped over something and his leg was all mangled. Like he's not going to make it.
Right. And they basically tell you that. So this takes place.
Like, the trauma part is that poor Jacob has to like just hold his grandpa while he dies.
Right. Which, oh my God.
Like, can you imagine?
No, and yes. And the reason I say yes, and I won't go too deep into this, and it's kind of sad, but when my grandfather passed, that like last week beforehand, because he did at home, he was sick with cancer. We kind of knew it was coming soon. So like the few hours before, I had been sitting in his room with him, just kind of like holding his hand and talking to him. And like, I knew like this was it. And for anybody that likes the paranormal, I have a story to go with it, if you'll message me. But like, I knew this was it. So like, essentially my grandfather is laying there dying and I'm just holding his hand, but I wasn't there when he died. So I get it. Like, I can imagine, but I can't at the same time because I wasn't physically in the room when he actually did take his last breath. But he was.
And beyond
it was
that,
happening.
This was such a gruesome way to go.
It was a gruesome attack. Like, he even says, like, there's blood and, like, it's just so much going on, but, like, he's not focused on that. He's just focused on, like, trying to help his grandpa live. So, yeah, you've stumbled across, like, a gruesome scene, and it's your grandfather, and you basically have to hold him while your friend calls 911 to come with the ambulance. Like, that part I cannot fathom. Like,
now, and let's also say this is all chapter 1. Like, this is the very beginning of the book.
Yeah, very beginning.
Which I will say, chapter 1 was rather long. I'm one of those people who I look to see how long the chapters are. This book, the chapters are not the same length throughout. Chapter 1 was pretty lengthy because we get a lot of backstory and all of this happens. Mm-hmm. So yeah. Be prepared if you're one of those people who I'm just going to sit down and read a chapter. Like, chapter 1's quite a few pages.
It is. And then I noticed there's like a few chapters later as we're going on that are super short. And then there's one that's like, because I did a hop back and forth. I forgot to mention, you and I kind of talked about this. We'd also talked about you reading on one format and me reading on the other. I know you read like the actual physical book. I have a copy of the physical book that I checked out from the library because I wanted to see all the pictures and stuff. And I wanted to like be able to jump back and forth. But I did do a lot of it on audio. The narrator's great. He actually is the same guy that narrates the Percy Jackson books. And I did learn if you get the audio version, there's a PDF file that gives you all the pictures.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, I thought that was really cool. So I was thinking to myself like, oh, I'm going to listen to one more chapter. And then I'd look at like the timestamp on it and I'd be like, oh my God. And I don't speed up, but I do like the normal is like 1, I think like 1.0 time, like speed. I do like 1.5. 2 is a little too fast. And anything lower than 1 is just like,
yeah,
I do like 1.5. So mine are a tiny bit shorter, but I looked at one and it was like 5 minutes. And the next one's like 45 minutes. And I'm like, what? Like, that's one chapter. Like, what is going on? So Bianca's right. They're a little inconsistent on their length. And I think that does happen in some books, but this seemed like drastic. I don't know. Did you feel that way?
No, I definitely felt that way because, like I said, I'm one of those people who I'll sit down and just read a chapter and then go and do something else.
Right.
I could not do that with this. I had to be like, okay, I'll read like 10 pages.
And that's why I was glad. And I did get finished before you. I was like, I'm finished with our book. And she was like, girl. I'm like, well, I did do the audio. So like while I was cleaning the kitchen. So like, because it is spooky fall here and cold already, like I've been making like pasta sauce and applesauce because Bianca and I are both, that's another thing we share. We love to cook. We love to homemade things. So like I was listening to those like 4 hours it took me that day to make pasta sauce. Like that's how I got done so fast. Because you can leave it, but you can't. There's a whole at the beginning, you can't leave it. And then you get to a point where you just leave it. So that's how I got done. But like it was very inconsistent. So that was one of the things I didn't like is the inconsistency with the length of chapters. I did not like how much happens so quick in the first chapter because everything we just talked about is chapter 1. Meeting Jacob, learning about his grandpa's stories, about the peculiar children, learning that grandpa is a survivor of the Holocaust, essentially, learning about his family, how they own all of this, and how he's basically the heir to the throne, learning about how his dad is kind of looked at as like this freeloading scientist guy. All of this is chapter 1.
And then chapter 1 ends on a cliffhanger because just as Grandpa Abe dies, Jacob looks into the woods and he sees something. And he says it was, quote, right out of his nightmares. And then he just blacks out. And that's the end of chapter 1.
That's the end.
And you're just like, I just read like 30 pages and you're going to leave me like this?
Exactly. Yeah, it's a little intense. Now the next couple of chapters can be shortened very quickly, I feel like.
Yes.
And that's the other thing is there are a lot of minute details in these chapters that as a reader you'll probably enjoy. But then I also felt like there were a few times there were things that like I didn't need to know and it just drug on.
That was like I've read the first 2, if not the first 3 in the series. But I remember that's why I put them down is because you'll have these intense moments in whole chapters and then the next 2 or 3 chapters just drag.
I will say this though. I still feel Ransom Riggs is a fantastic writer.
Yes.
I just don't know if his writing style is one that I prefer consistently. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I can see that.
Like there are writers that I don't like their writing style at all. I have tried to read multiple of their books to give it a go. Didn't get there. Prime example, Nora Roberts. We all know I love romance. So you would think most women that love romance or people, I shouldn't say women, they typically love Nora. I don't. I don't like how long she takes to describe something. I don't like the inconsistency of the length of chapters. I don't. I don't like any of it. I also don't like that most of her things come in mass market paperback. And if you were here for a prior discussion, you know I'm not a huge fan of mass market paperbacks. So there's that. But I will say overall, while I'm going to have some complaints as we continue to go about the story and his writing, I overall enjoy Ransom Riggs as a storyteller. I think he's an excellent storyteller.
Yes. He's a very good storyteller. Yeah. You can just you can tell this is his first novel.
Yes,
I'll put it that way.
I have had someone tell me that there is a book that is part of the series that it's like Tales of the Peculiar, like kind of like the Beetle and Bard is with Harry Potter series, where it's just like you don't have to have this book at all. But I have heard a lot of people say, "Oh, I picked this up at random, not really knowing," and they said it was excellent. Like it is great because it's different little stories that like you can choose to read.
And see, that was the fourth one that he came out with.
Yeah.
If you want to count that as part of the series, some people do, some people don't. So that was technically his fourth published book.
Yeah. And I have heard a lot of people say that they really loved that one. So I just kind of wanted to say that because it sounds, there are going to be times where it sounds like I'm really hating on the guy. And I don't. Like, I think he's an excellent storyteller. Another one of the things that took me out of the book sometimes, and this is going to sound weird because, so fun fact about Bianca and I, Bianca is not really a cuss words girl. Like, if she says a cuss word, she real mad. Like, she beyond mad. Like, clear the room, somebody about to die, right? I think I've only heard her. We have been friends now for 6 years, 7? I don't know. It's been a minute.
Yeah.
And I think I have only ever heard a cuss word come out of your mouth maybe twice, ever.
I don't even know if it's been that much.
Maybe one. I know once for sure. That's why I'm saying maybe twice. I know once for sure, and it was tame. Like, it was the tamest cuss word in the world. My kid said it at like 2. So, so you don't really, you're not a cursor. You don't.
No.
I do. Like, all the time. F-bomb is my favorite thing to say. But what bothered me, and so this is going to sound strange, and that's why I needed to tell that, I was not a fan of the cursing in this book.
It feels very out of place. Like,
there are moments when it's okay. But like I'm with you. Like, I felt like it took away from.
Because you're reading this book about really strange people who have these weird abilities that you've never even heard of, like beyond like Marvel stuff.
Right.
And most of them, like half the story takes place, I'll put it in quotes, in the 20s. Or is it 40s? It's in the 40s. Sorry, World War II.
The 40s, because it's World War II. Mm-hmm.
Like, when you're in that kind of setting, you have this preconception in your brain of how people acted, how they ate, how they conducted their everyday lives. And the way it's used in here, it doesn't line up with that conception. Like, don't get me wrong. No. I know people curse like sailors. Like, I get that.
Right.
But
I mean,
for the setting of the book, it doesn't add up. Because just to skip ahead a little bit, in chapter 2, they basically put Jacob in therapy. I mean, same. He went through a very traumatic experience.
Exactly.
His family throws him a Sweet 16 party. And they had cleaned out his grandfather's house, and an aunt had found something that was addressed to Jacob from Grandpa Abe. And that was the present. And I think, wasn't it a letter? I think it was a letter.
I think it was a book with a letter in it. It was it was a book with a letter in it. I should have written down the book because it's a very famous book. I think it's maybe,
wasn't it Ralph Waldo Emerson?
Poems. Yeah, Emerson, I believe. Yeah.
Anyway, so he reads that letter and he decides that in his quest to help himself heal from everything, he basically needs to go to this orphanage that he's heard so much about from his grandpa. And the orphanage is over
a real place
in Europe.
Mm-hmm. It is a real place. That is the thing. Is some of Grandpa's stuff. It is real. It can be solidified. Like that place is here on this island. Yeah. So there's parts of Grandpa's stories that are absolutely true. It's just
But
everybody
to say all
keeps
of
telling
that,
him.
like you're
Yeah.
transported from this hot, intense Florida setting to this much
Yes.
calmer, cooler, misty, like for real,
Yeah.
the fall autumn vibes, and all of the cursing
Yes.
throughout the book, it just doesn't fit with those vibes.
No. I think it fit in certain moments. So there's a moment in the beginning when Grandpa's still alive and he calls Jacob and he's like, you know, they're chasing me, and he's trying to shrug him off. And I think he even uses a curse word that I don't say. I can't be positive right now. I'd have to have the book in front of me. But he's basically, Jacob's trying to shrug him off, and he's like, oh, Grandpa, it's okay. I'll come when I can. And Grandpa's like, I don't want to say he says words he doesn't, but he's basically like, for fuck's sake, boy, like get over here and do what I told you to do. Like in that moment. Okay. So in that moment, I understand the use of cursing, the curse word, right? The language.
Yeah.
In that moment, I get it. It makes sense. It is part of the. Like,
he drops the GD.
Yes, I thought he did. I hate that. I don't do that one. Don't do it. Don't like it.
Yeah.
So he does, but as much as I don't like that, it made sense in that moment. Like I understood what he was trying to convey, because that's how upset and terrified and angry Grandpa was right before he died, like right before he was attacked, because he knew what was about to happen. And he's trying to convey to Jacob, you need to get over here. And then there's another time when we actually get to this misty, like magical European island that I think one of the local boys drops a curse word because he thinks he's super cool. One of them thinks they're like a rapper. And the other one's like a b-boy, like hype man. And I think
they remind me of the two boys from Hocus Pocus.
Yes, absolutely. But picture them like to me, because it's an island, right? And it's like marshy and muddy and muck and yuck. I think it tells you exactly where it actually is. But I was thinking like the Scottish countryside, those little islands that are like all over the place.
Yeah.
It's misty, it's wet, it's cold. That's what I was picturing. So I was also picturing, like you said, the two guys from Hocus Pocus, but I was imagining them as what I call b-boys or soccer hooligans, where they're in like Adidas sweatpants or sweat tracksuits.
Yeah.
And like those hats, because I watch a lot of British stuff, and like no offense to anybody that's British that might listen to us. Hey, that's just what I pictured, the bucket hat and the tracksuit. Also, as someone that lives in Europe, I'm not lying when that is a thing. Like the soccer hooligans and the b-boys, like that's what they wear. That is what they wear. So I was picturing that on this like reclusive Scottish, like marshy island, because they also talk about the sheep. There's a lot of sheep in this.
Carnholm, yeah. Am I pronouncing that correctly?
Carnholm, I believe you are. Or Cairnholm, probably Cairn.
Oh, hold on. Google says that although the island doesn't exist, it is based on a place called Rasili Village.
Uh-huh.
And the title Promontory Island Worm's Head, meaning dragon's head in Norse. So Carnholm is not real.
No, I didn't figure, but if it were, it'd probably be pronounced by the locals more like Cairnholm.
Yeah.
You know, like with the lilt. So yeah, it's still kind of what I thought, that like misty place. And the reason he goes there is like Bianca said, he gets this letter. He's been going to therapy, but that he fully is now believing Grandpa, and he believes the stories because he knows what he saw after Grandpa was attacked. Not to mention seeing Grandpa. So he's in therapy, but it's causing like it has caused a falling out with his friend. Only friend.
Yeah,
his mom and dad don't know how to get to him anymore.
He and the fake Argyle are no longer friends.
Yeah, they're like no longer friends. They're not even speaking. Like he doesn't even want to talk to any of his family. I think it even says like his grades aren't doing well. He's basically kind of like doing even worse at his job. Or no, they've told him he doesn't have to go to work or school. But like,
I think it's important to mention why all of this happened is because that thing that Jacob saw in the woods, His friend didn't see it. Only Jacob saw it.
No.
So when when people ask what happened, Jacob goes on this long story about this monster he saw in the woods. People think he's lost his mind.
Yeah, they do think he's going crazy. And his friend, who he thinks would be his, like, beside him. Like, if I saw something, if you and I both went somewhere and I saw something, I would expect, and I think it would go the other way too, where I'd be like, Bianca, I swear to you, I know what I saw. And you were like, but I didn't see it. You're crazy. I'm sure that would probably push us apart, because here I am insistent during this horrific time. I saw this thing and I know I did. And you're like, you're crazy. You didn't see it. Like, it would
because
cause a rift.
Unfortunately he saw the thing just after he held his dying grandfather. So everyone's thinking he just has PTSD.
Right. I mean, he ended up blacking out, like, as he's holding his grandpa. So he's going to therapy. He gets the book. He convinces his parents. He's like, look, and even the therapist is like this. He expects the therapist to be like, this is a dumb idea. But the therapist even backs him up and is like, it tells his parents, like, I think this is actually an excellent idea for Jacob. He just needs to go and see that, see this through, see that none of this is real, and everything will be fine. So they go to Karen home. They end up staying in this, like, little sea shanty kind of place.
It's the only place with beds on the island for visitors. That's how small this island is.
Which, as someone who lives in a village of 3,000 people, totally get it. We have one hotel. It has 10 rooms. Now, we're closer to other civilization than that. But if you want to legitimately stay in our village, that's all you got. Now you can drive literally 15 minutes up the road and there are tons of hotels and stuff. But anyway, so I understood that, like, there only being, like, so much in this one place. And it's also the only place to eat as well. So it sounds like a very quaint, quiet, everybody knows everybody. And I can understand that kind of village. He gets there. They're met with a little bit of pushback initially, because they're like, well, why are you here? And he is asking weird questions. He's asking
about an old orphanage that hasn't been in operation since the war. And by the war, we mean World War II.
Yeah, World War II. And he's like, well, do you remember of an orphanage that took in people in World War II? Maybe they took in refugees. And at first they're like, we don't know what you're talking about. And then eventually they kind of let it slip, like, yeah, but it's basically rubble. It's ruins. Like, and I don't remember who actually ends up finally, like, giving in. But at first they send him on a wild goose chase, essentially. And they're like, yeah. And he ends up with just muddy and dirty, and because it's marshy swamp, sheep land on an island.
He promises his dad he won't go looking for this orphanage alone, so that's when he meets up with the two teenage hooligans.
The boys. Yeah.
And they basically just lead him out into the swampy wilderness for funsies and
they
jokes.
Also think he's crazy.
Yeah. But he does eventually find the orphanage.
He does.
And like Miranda said, it's in severe disrepair. You can tell no one has been there in decades. Mm-hmm. You can tell it was bombed during the war. And my cat is now making an appearance, so if you hear meows, say hey to Babe.
Hi, Babe.
Just woke up from her nap in the window.
Nice.
After he discovers this orphanage and he sees, like, there's really nothing he can discover from it, he goes back to the hotel kind of, like, disheartened, like he can't accomplish the mission that he came all the way to Europe for. And
like,
just
he can tell that was the place. Like, he can. Wasn't there something where he's like, this is definitely the place. He was definitely here. But Grandpa's stories, like, they're not real.
Well, because he had seen pictures of the orphanage, so he could make out, like, what structure was left.
Right.
So he goes back to the hotel, severely disheartened, goes to sleep, and he wakes up the next morning to a bird in his room. And you're like, why would a bird be in his room? You want to know why a bird was in his room, Miranda?
Why was a bird?
Because it was a peregrine.
It was a peregrine, which is very important.
It was very important.
It is very important. But it also lets you know, like, the bird is looking at him, like it knows him, or like it's interested in him, which I have seen birds do before. They're kind of
peregrines aren't like a common bird.
No, they're not.
Like, when you think of birds, you think like a robin or a sparrow or You're in Florida, a seagull.
Right.
You don't think a peregrine.
Or like here, pigeons.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, they're not common. But his dad is with him as well, and his dad like doesn't really want him to go looking for this. His dad really didn't want to do this, but the therapist, like I said, convinced them to do it. Eventually he finds the place. But I'm trying to remember. He decides to go back out again, right? Like,
well, when he finally stumbled over the orphanage, it was starting to get night, and he didn't have a flashlight.
Right.
So he wants to go back the next day just to see it in the daylight. While he's there, he basically finds a trunk. We'll just skip all of the other stuff.
Yeah, it's kind of nonsense stuff.
That's part of the stuff that could have been left out.
Yes.
But he eventually finds a trunk. And I thought this was interesting because I am a 30-year-old woman. I never would have thought to do this. Jacob discovers the only way to open this trunk is to drop it from like a super high place where it hit the ground.
Okay, I have done that before.
See, I have not. I would have been like, okay, I'm going to find like a crowbar or a hammer or something to smash it.
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe that's just my violent tendencies coming out.
I also was picturing the type of like trunk slash, it would have been old, like you see like in older TV shows when they go travel. Like it would have been like a trunk slash suitcase kind of thing. So, like, to me, yeah. If you,
I guess that makes sense. I was picturing, like, a wooden chest, like a treasure chest.
You know what? It could be, too. But I was picturing, like, do you remember, I think they especially, like, a steamer trunk. Like, it was a suitcase, but it was also, like, a trunk. Like, so I was picturing that where, like, if you pushed it over, like, it would.
Okay, see, now that makes more sense.
But you could be correct as well. That's just, again, this goes to, like, when you read a book, regardless of how something is described, you picture it in your head, however you do. Like, that's just how it is. So, yeah, he busts it open, and in it is kind of the validation he needed. I mean, in a lot of ways. It's
a lot of the photos.
Yeah. The ones the exact
even
ones
more
he's
photos.
seen before.
Yeah.
Plus more. Yeah, plus more.
But while he was inspecting the trunk fell to the basement. So while he's in the basement, he starts to hear things in the house above him, and he's like, what the crap, I'm by myself.
Mm-hmm. Well, I thought I was by myself. I'm supposed to be by myself.
And then he looks up at the hole that the trunk came through, and there's heads looking at him, peering over the edge of the hole. And he recognizes one of them, and one of them is a girl from the pictures that he's seen. So he tries to run after them before they get too far. He follows the girl basically through this bog, and they go in this tunnel. And when he emerges on the other side of the tunnel, she kind of like kidnaps him, basically wrestles him to the ground, says, "You're coming with me," and kidnaps him.
Mm-hmm.
And he sees a calendar on the wall, and the date is September 3rd, 1940.
Yep.
He has just time traveled.
And like seamlessly as well. Like he doesn't even know he did, because the island still looks a little bit the same. The problem is, well, she doesn't hold him captive initially, if you remember, and it can kind of be left alone. But the thing is, the reason he realizes this is he goes to the exact same place that he and his father are staying at, and he's trying to go up to his room, and the bartender, who is not the same bartender, is yelling him and is like, "What are you trying to do, boy?" And he's like, "Go to my room." And the guy starts laughing at him, and he's like, "The only person that lives here is me."
Yeah.
And then like the other bar, yeah, no, like, so it's strange. So like already, like, he can tell something's wrong, essentially. Like, you know, it's not the same place. It's the same place, but everything looks just a little bit different.
Yeah.
And so she's like, "I'll help you." Haha, just kidding. You're my captive. Because they're thinking he doesn't look right. So everybody's chasing him.
Yeah, he doesn't look right, and no one is supposed to time travel besides them. So they're like, who's this new stranger that can follow me through these time loops?
And they actually believe him to be what they call a white. which we'll learn more about what a white is later, but they think he's a white. So the peculiar children that have come across him do. They're like, we already know they're peculiar, so it's not giving anything away or getting too far. They're peculiars, and they keep talking about how he must be a white. He must be a white. So we have to take him to the old bird, which I love that they continuously call her the old bird.
It's kind of like how you have that one teacher, you can always pick on no matter what you call them. That's her nickname, is the old bird, because her name is Miss Peregrine.
Mm-hmm.
Just like in high school, one of my professors or teachers, he was unfortunate enough to be struck by lightning not once, but twice in his life.
Oh, good God.
So we called him Sparky.
I had a high school teacher that I was extremely close to. He hated his nickname, and if you called him that, he would yell at you, and you'd be in a lot of trouble. But I was really big in ag, FFA, such. That's what I went to college for. And my ag teacher through high school actually looked just like Tommy Chong from Cheech and Chong. He did. Like, he looked just like him. All he needed was the bandana. And he hated it, but they called him Chong. Yeah.
Well, this Chong, aka Miss Peregrine, to transition back to our story. So the girl who captured him, her name is Emma. Emma takes him back to the orphanage, and this time, instead of it being in complete disrepair, he sees it as it was supposed to be seen. It's completely perfect. The yard is manicured. There are children literally everywhere, and he sees them all using their various abilities. One girl can float up into the air, and she basically wears weighted shoes. Yeah. She has to wear weighted shoes in order to stay grounded. Sorry if you can hear Babe.
No. I don't hear.
I just got sidetracked. But he goes to talk to Miss Peregrine. She kind of explains that they're stuck in a time loop for September 3rd, 1940, in order to keep the children safe, because whites, which Emma initially suspected Jacob to be, are basically hunting peculiar children. So Miss Peregrine has set up this time loop for September 3rd, 1940, just to keep everyone safe.
Yes.
In order to learn more, Jacob decides to stay for dinner, and he asks the children how old they are, and most of them are in their 70s and 80s at that point.
Because they are the same children that his grandfather has been telling the stories about this whole time. So his grandfather wasn't lying. These peculiar children are real.
They exist.
And they exist. And his grandfather, they tell how old he is at the beginning. He's like in his late 70s, early 80s. Like, I mean, he would have to be.
Yeah.
For when he, how old he was during the war and such, but it's like he's late 70s, early 80s. So clearly all of that, and some of them, I think one of them's like, oh, I'd be 90, blah, 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 or I'd be 100. Like, some of these children, if they went by, like if they aged, like Abe actually did, they'd be basically dust. Like
as long as they stay in the time loop, they don't age. That's how they're still age. Children.
Yes. But I could imagine, though, all the years in some ways, and this talks, like we were saying earlier, common sense and book smarts, right? So what I did kind of like is, in some ways, especially the way they speak like adults sometimes, and then other times they speak like children, because Peregrine actually is still treating them like children. Like, I mean, they've been in this loop where they should be like 80 something, and she's still essentially treating them like children. So sometimes these kids, when they're talking, through the next few chapters, sometimes they sound like children. And then other times they don't. They sound like grown adults. But what's really interesting is all this time has passed, but they've been in this loop, right? And all these things have happened in the world, and they know nothing of them. They have no clue. Like, they're fascinated by his cell phone.
That's what Jacob eventually has, like a beach day with them at some point, and they basically bombard him with all of these questions, and the children are just enamored with the technological advances that have happened since the 40s.
And they're so excited to learn about all of it that he doesn't understand the repercussions of telling them, so he's just telling them like everything. He's talking to him about cars and cell phones and like things that have happened in history, current events, like just anything. I'm sure that you would probably also want to tell somebody if they were like, I've been stuck in the past, or, you know, if you met someone from the future, you'd be like, tell me everything, you know, like.
And that eventually gets him in trouble because Miss Peregrine learns that he's been telling these things to the children.
Right.
And she's like, you can't do that. You can't entice them to want to live outside this loop, because if they leave the loop, they're dead. And he doesn't really like, I think he understands it, but he also wants to educate them.
I think he understands it, but I don't think he does, because to him, he's like, well, my grandpa lived outside the loop and he did just fine. And he had a family and like all of these things going for him. So like, I think in some ways he's also, because they almost describe it like they would start aging rapidly if they took them outside the loop.
Yeah.
And it did happen. Apparently there's a young lady that they use an example. She started aging rapidly, but then they also say like, she didn't just die. Like she's just really old now. Like,
yeah, they have a picture. It's this really old lady, like looking like in her 80s, sitting on the lap of a woman who looks to be in like in her 40s or 50s, maybe.
Right.
But the look in the old lady's eyes, you can tell that she's not really that old. Like she looks very innocent.
Yes.
Like she has not lived a life. And you can just tell that from the picture.
So that's what I didn't, that was one of the things I didn't understand, but I guess in some ways they kind of explain it without explaining it, because Grandpa did not do that. But then Grandpa was never officially in the loop. I think he left
the day the loop started.
Yeah, the day before, like before the loop actually took place. So maybe that's the difference. They don't ever explain that. And I haven't obviously gone into book 2, 3, 4 or any of that. So maybe it's explained later. But that's where I was confused for a moment, is when they were talking about like, this is why you can't tell them. This is why you can't entice them to want to leave the loop, because they'll start aging rapidly. It won't be like instantaneous. Well, for a moment, I thought they meant it was instantaneous. I guess it's not. But I guess like,
no, because the children leave the loop every now and then just to make sure the loop works. Right.
Every now and then they leave it, make sure everything's great, and then they come back. But so I was confused because at first I was like, she's kind of, and then I thought maybe she's just doing that to scare Jacob, because when she's explaining it, she almost makes it sound like it will happen so rapidly, like I couldn't control it, like you can't do this. But then I learned later as we're going that like it's not instant. It like takes a few weeks or something, but then like in a few weeks the person would suddenly be like a year or two older, like it would happen quickly. Yeah. So that is kind of odd, and it was strange, but that it lends to the children being both very smart because they're older, but at the same time very childlike, because they fight and they roughhouse and they argue and bicker like children still.
Yeah.
But in your head, they're 80 years old. So that was kind of strange. And obviously, as we're going, Emma and Jacob are growing closer to each other, because when the orphanage was a real up and running orphanage before the loop happened, yes, they were all still peculiar children. Like they aren't peculiar because of the loop. They were there because they were peculiar. Grandpa and Emma had a thing.
Yes.
They would have been young children, so it wasn't really like a thing. It's just like, it was more like
they would have been like 14, 15, 16, somewhere in there. So like they would have been young like puppy love type stuff.
So I wanted to ask you, obviously Jacob and Emma are getting closer, and like on the beach day, they kiss. Were you weirded out by that? Because I was weirded out by that. And I know somebody's going to come for me.
I think this is the third time I've read this book now. Every time I get to this love, I don't even want to call it a triangle.
It's not, because Grandpa, like, it doesn't spoil anything, but Grandpa leaves. And at one point she writes him a letter, and he basically like tells her.
He's basically like, I have a life. I have a life with you in it.
Yeah, I'm very sorry. I hope you guys are all okay. But like, he basically grew up, and so to him, he didn't think about her. And he thought about her, but not in that way.
I think part of that is because Emma is stuck in that loop, so she lives the same day over and over again. She doesn't get to move on like Abe did.
No, and so that's all she has to think about is Abe left me, and how she still cares for Abe. Abe he met other people, he saw other things, he did other things, he fought the monsters in the real world, he moved on. And like, I'm sure everybody has a story of when they were a teenager, like, oh, this was the person that I really loved and cared about. And at that time in my life, I thought I would be with them forever. And now you look back on it and it's just like a cutesy thing that was part of your past. Well, Emma is still, like you said, she's still thinking about it and Grandpa wasn't. So she was really kind of like not nobody, but she wasn't like important. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but I was weirded out by it because 2 reasons. And somebody's going to come for me and be like, but you were okay with Edward and Bella? I don't know why I can settle for that. But this bothers me because, yes, she is still technically like 15, right? Her body is 15. Her mind is not. She should be like 80.
Yeah.
And as we said, Jacob's like 15, about to be 16. And she even says when they're going around the table telling their ages, like how old they would be, like they know how long they've been in the loop. They have a way of keeping up with it. They know what year it should be. They know how old they would be. It's just they don't really know everything about what's going on outside the loop. And obviously because it's on a small island, all of those things that he's also been telling them about, like cell phones and all that, because that's the other thing. Cell phones don't work here, period. So when they go out to make sure that the loop is in working order, there's things like that they wouldn't even like notice.
Yeah.
So I was a little creeped out because it even talks about how like at first he's kind of like, oh, but I don't want to go there because if she really did have something with Grandpa, and then I guess she finally tells him like, we did and we didn't. Like Abe was never going to stay here. I knew that. He knew that.
Yeah, Abe, when he was at the orphanage, he was always talking about going to fight the monsters, which could be taken in both these ways.
I think it was both ways.
He was talking about the monsters, a.k.a. the Nazis, that were hunting down his people, the Jewish people. Right. But he was also talking about the hologasts and the whites.
Right.
So he was going to hunt down 2 types of monsters.
This whole book
when he initially left the loop, he was fighting down hologasts. Like, they say he killed a few.
Yes, he did. The whole thing is a giant allegory, really.
Yes, it is.
Especially like the closeness of the names. They're the whites and the hologasts, and he's fighting those. And I think that's why another thing, people didn't believe him when he would tell these stories, because think of how closely the names would be to like the Nazis and the Holocaust, and I think that was done on purpose. I think Ransom Riggs chose, when he was building this world, those names on purpose. But yeah, I was kind of creeped out by the whole Emma Jacob thing. And just so you know, it continues. It flourishes.
Yes. It becomes a whole relationship. Well, because Jacob eventually, because he and his dad are there for a couple of weeks. So Jacob spends several days at the orphan. He goes through they have this time loop set up through like where you go through a tunnel and through rocks and stuff, and he figures out how to do it efficiently.
But time is passing normally. So like if he's in the loop for 4 hours, 4 hours have passed in whatever year it is on the island. So like it's the same. It's just that same day is being replayed over and over and over again. So that's so that the children don't die and the orphanage isn't destroyed. So that is kind of interesting because in a lot of stories where you jump, people are like, oh, you were gone.
Yeah. No,
No, his dad notices. Like his dad's like, where were you? Why weren't you home? The storm is horrible. Like this is a whole thing. Like he's having arguments with his dad when he goes back. Like he's even locking himself in his room and pretending to be sick.
Well, because there's another subplot happening. So while Jacob is at the orphanage, there's stuff going on in the village. Mm-hmm. A farmer is having his sheep killed, but the sheep are being killed in like really horrific ways.
Yes.
But you can tell that the sheep are being killed just for funsies.
And another new mysterious person has appeared on the island who is quote unquote also an ornithologist there to do the same study his dad has decided to do while they're there, which is just strange. Even his dad thinks it's strange.
Yeah, because who comes to that specific island for like this one specific type of bird? Like it's a 1 in billion chance that would happen.
So his dad's also kind of panicking because he's like, this was a chance of a lifetime. Like, once I realized that this bird was here and we were already here, like, this is a chance of lifetime to finally make my name. They talk about that, how he could finally, like, break through as the name of this field. And suddenly here's this guy. So his dad thinks it's weird, but he thinks it's weird for a different reason that Jacob is thinking it's weird.
Yeah.
It's also strange because there's this horrible storm that's supposed to be coming in. And that's why they're actually staying longer as well, is because no one is allowed to leave the island.
Well, and then once the animals start dying, they basically put everyone on lockdown, so you can't leave your house. I think it's after 7.
And they blame the wrong person as well.
Yes, they blame one of the teenage hooligans.
Yeah, the group of them together.
Yeah. But in order to get around that, Jacob sneaks out with Emma late one night to talk to her. And that's when Emma eventually tells Jacob that you can only enter the time loop if you're peculiar. So Jacob is like, yes. I'm normal. What are you talking about? And so Emma explains that Abe was actually able to see whites and hologasts that no one else could. And Jacob was like, what?
Right.
And that's when he figures out he can also see them because that's what he saw in the woods.
Right. That's when he tells them, he's like, wait, I saw this when my grandpa died. And they're basically like, oh, crap. Like, and him and Miss Peregrine have this whole discussion. And that's when she's like, I've known this since the first day you came through. You're peculiar. You have to be. Here's why. She's very tight-lipped about things, because actually one of the things we kind of glossed over is when he first gets there and they all assume he's a white, he has like a private meeting with her where Emma is hanging out outside the door like eavesdropping, but she tells him, you must not tell anyone here in the loop that Abe is dead. It could risk everything, especially because she knows at that point what killed Abe, because he tells her like how it happened. And she knows that the monster actually finally got him. The whites and the hologasts have gotten him. So she's like, you must not tell anybody that Abe's dead. And you especially must not tell them how he died. Emma has overheard this. She knows. She's crying profusely. So Peregrine keeps things close-lipped. So she actually comes back and is like, I knew the first time you came in here, when you told me about your grandfather, when Emma took you hostage thinking you were white, I knew you were peculiar. And that's why. Which
I understand her not springing all of that on Jacob at once.
Mm-hmm.
Like, personally, if I had just wandered into this time loop and found all these peculiar children, and then you try and tell me that I'm peculiar, no, I would bolt. I'd be like, right. No, I'm going back to Florida. Bye.
I'd be well, I don't know. I'd be in this weird state of terrified, because then I'd be like, wait, so if I can see them, and if they know I can see them, because I would think the thing he saw in the forest would realize he saw it, right? Like,
I would assume so.
Yeah. If someone's looking at you or through you, does that make sense? Or
yeah,
there's a difference in looking at someone and looking near someone, or like kind of gazing around. He locked eyes with this thing, like,
which so they have a like a police sketch, obviously, because Jacob went to the police and said this is what killed my grandfather, and the sketch of this monster is really something else. It's got a man's head, but out of his mouth is like these octopus tentacles.
Yeah.
I wish we had a full body picture, because the head itself is kind of terrifying.
I was thinking, like, in my head, I was picturing like some Stranger Things Demogorgon tentacles out of the mouth kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we're nearing the end of the book now, once Jacob realizes he's peculiar. They basically work out that the stranger on the island is a white, meaning, so there's two different monsters. There's a white and there's a hologast.
The whites are in charge, basically.
Yeah, the whites kind of do the detective work for the hologast. The whites try to find the peculiar children so the hologast can consume them and take over their essence, basically, for lack of a better word. But the hologasts are the monsters, the ones with the tentacles coming out of their mouth. To sum it all up, if you're fine with a sum up,
Yeah.
There's a huge boss fight, if you will, that happens. Jacob eventually kills the Hologast, and he is a hero. But in the midst of all of this, Peregrine somehow gets stuck in her bird form. She cannot convert back to her human form.
Can I just say I did not care for this boss fight?
It was very complicated. I had a hard time following it.
I was following and tracking, but I was like, it had this whole like, and this is part of the writing that I didn't like. So it had this like, and they're trying to get him to do this on purpose because they're trying to come up with a plan basically. But the White has this like villain monologue and goes on this like tirade of like,
yes,
this is who I am and I know who you are and blah, blah, blah. And by the way, the weird thing that I did like when he gave his villain monologue is this White has been basically tracking Jacob his entire life. He was his therapist. He was the old guy that was hanging out around Grandpa's house when he showed up to check on Grandpa. He is the ornithology guy. Like, he's the same dude. Which
he was a bus driver for him at school.
Yeah,
he has been tracking Jacob literally his entire life.
So that I liked.
That gave me the chills when I read that.
Same, because then it's like the true thing of like there's monsters around you all the time. Like, not going like deep and philosophical, but there are. It's just, who can you trust, right? So that creepy, loved it. But the whole like villain monologue and the dead body, and because one of the guys does get killed. Oh, the guy that actually happens to know a lot of information and finally gives Jacob the information he needs to get the. He's like the.
He's like the old neighbor in the
he's
village.
The historian.
Who knows
he runs
everything.
like their museum and all of those things. He's like the historian.
Yeah.
He ends up murdered by the Holocaust. But they put him on ice in the fishery because they're like, well, nobody can get off the island. He was murdered in a weird way. We've got to have this investigated. So the fight all takes place in there with this villain monologue, and it was just like so convoluted and like other than
the fight is constantly moving in different locations.
Yeah, and
so,
then they're
like,
here,
you're not
and then
all
the building
fighting
falls
in this
down.
one thing.
Yeah, and then I'm not going into detail into it because I'm telling you what happens. I'm just saying, like, it's kind of messed up because it's like, oh, the building falls down, the creature's dead. No, it's not. The White is gone though, but no, it's not. It's storming, but wait a second. Like, it's just, it was a little much. Like,
well, because during this fight is when the bombing of the island happens in 1940.
Right. So there's like all of this going on, and they're on the part of the island that they're on right now is modern day, like now island. Like, it's modern day island. The kids have come through with him. So this is like his dad's locked up in his room. The dead guy that's the historian is laying right here. So like they're also, then they switch into 1940. It's a little all over the place. There were parts of it I enjoyed, but
well, I think it is important to mention that the final fight when Jacob decides to stay, it's the night of 1940, September 3rd, 1940. Like,
so we've got, like, we had that initial fight, and that's the other thing is we have this initial fight, but it's not over. We immediately take it into another place, but then we get there and then it kind of drags for a second because, like, well, we got to get the bird back. We got to do this. We have to do that because the White disappeared during the initial battle because he goes to take Peregrine. Like, he's like, I'm going to get out of here and take Peregrine. Because is it the Whites or the Hologasts that are essentially Peregrine's siblings, correct?
It's the Whites.
The Whites.
Yeah.
The Hologasts are what happened to them when they, like...
when they absorbed some kind of energy.
Too much.
It was...
they absorbed too much, and it turns them into this, like, horrible monster. But the Whites still have capacity to, like, think and do and move around. The only thing different is their eyes are literally white, like they're blind. Like,
I view it as... kind of like Harry Potter, they're the bad guys, but they think they're doing good for humanity.
Yes, exactly. The Thanos theory, the bad guy theory in Harry Potter, they think they're doing, the theory of they think they're doing what's best, but in reality they're not.
Yeah, they're just destroying everything.
They're just making it even worse. And my whole theory with the hologasts are kind of like Gollum, where he's consumed, so it changes his form.
Yeah.
He's all consumed by this, so it changes his form, and that's essentially what happened. The whites' forms are changed in the sense of, like I said, their eyes, because they keep talking about
their eyes are white.
They're totally white. So that's why you come through, if you go back through a lot of the iterations of the guy, he's always wearing glasses of some sort, or hiding his face, or sits in shadow. So he would have never seen that his eyes were all white, because it's the one thing they cannot hide about themselves. So yeah, a white basically, or a hologast is like Gollum, too much power. But it was, I don't know, I felt like we did this like drastically long first chapter that had a lot of information and a lot of really scary, fucked up shit. Excuse me. Bad stuff. Forgive me. Anyway, it had all this bad stuff, and then we had like several chapters of explaining like the depression he's in and the problems he's going through, and then all of a sudden like this cool magical world, and then bull crap we didn't need, and then bam, fight, blah 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 blah. Like again, like it's a lot. It's a long chapter again, like a really long chapter.
That's what in my notes. Yeah. So I take for books I know that we're going to do for a podcast, I take not extensive notes, but I outline like what happens in the chapter.
Mm-hmm.
Chapter 1 is like probably half a page. And then the next few chapters, they're very short. Not a lot really happens.
Yeah.
And then chapter 10, like even though it was a very long chapter, here's what I wrote. Jacob kills a hologast, and then he kills this person, and then Peregrine is stuck as a bird. And that's literally all I wrote.
Yeah.
Because there was just a lot of things happening at one time, and it was kind of hard to follow. So be prepared if you're going to read this, or if you're going to reread this. Maybe you were like me and you read it a long time ago, and you're like, hey, this sounds like a good one. Just be prepared for it to be a little confusing.
Well, it's like I said, I remembered the whole first part of the book. I remember them talking about the peculiar children. I remember Grandpa's death. I remembered like Jacob going to therapy, but then like past that, for some reason, I didn't remember any of it. So I will say, I do still recommend it before people start like, I'm going to turn them off because blah, blah, blah. I do still recommend the book. It's just things could have been done a little bit differently.
No, I completely agree. It's still a really good book. I will probably still reread it in the future. I think this was my third or fourth time rereading it.
It's my second.
So obviously I'm a fan. I love it. I do plan on finishing the rest of the series. Probably not this year because we'll get to these in a moment.
Yeah.
But I have other books that I have lined up.
Yeah. Well, that was going to be my question. So essentially, that's kind of book one. I mean, Jacob decides to stay. He explains to his father. His father still kind of thinks like, oh my God, you're crazy. But the children basically go and show up and are like, hi.
They prove themselves.
Yeah. Hi, Mr. Portman, blah, 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 blah. Oh, by the way, and what I think is really sweet is because while they're on this trip, his dad had found something that led him to believe that maybe his father, so Grandpa, had been stepping out on the family, and all these times he was disappearing. It was because he had like a mistress or another family or something. And it wasn't. He was actually off fighting the Holocaust. He was fighting these monsters his whole life. His dad finally realizes that, and Emma tells him, or she leaves a note and basically says, by the way, your father never did anything wrong. He basically, I'm paraphrasing, rephrasing, but she basically tells him, your father was a good man. He never cheated on your mother. And he never just abandoned you. Like, here, and that brought a tear to my eye, because he basically told her, like, his whole life he'd had kind of a tumultuous relationship with his dad because he didn't believe these stories, and he was missing. They describe a couple of times how like his dad was supposed to take him trick-or-treating or something, and he didn't show up. Like, he promised, and he didn't show up. And he's like, as always, your grandfather didn't show up and left me high and dry, so I don't care. And then he learns, like, crap, my dad actually, he wasn't abandoning me. Like, he wasn't seeing some other woman. And I don't know how it's going to carry out because, like I said, I haven't gone further. I don't know how they're going to explain this to Jacob's mom, but his dad is okay with this. His dad seems to understand. And Jacob also, I gathered, I don't know about you, he doesn't plan to stay forever, like in the loop forever. But
after the fight, the loop is gone.
Yeah, that loop is gone.
So it is now September 4th, 1940 at the end of the book.
But now they're setting off to find another loop because things I don't feel like we can adequately explain is how the loops work, how there are more of them. Apparently loops can be used by another person. Like she explains,
the loops have their own science behind them that we're not going to get into here.
I don't entirely think I understand it enough to explain it. I'm hoping if I move forward, it like breaks that down a little bit more. But yes, so they're now off in search for a new loop. Remind me, it's going to sound really bad. Where is Peregrine at this point?
She's there with them. She's just stuck in her bird form.
She's still stuck in bird form. Yes, they got her back. The white, they won this battle today, but there's about to be lots more battles. Jacob has decided to stay. His dad understands it, accepts it. Don't know how they're going to explain that to mom, but he has every intention of coming back. But he has also now started this relationship with Emma because they're holding hands when they walk away together. I'm still bothered by this. I don't know. I'm almost 40, so maybe the reason Twilight didn't bother me is I was significantly younger, but at 40, I'm bothered. Because here's the thing. My son is 16. And as much as I believe in the paranormal and the otherworldly and all of those things, if he came to me and told me all of the things, I would believe him, right? And then he'd grab Emma's hand and I'd be like, "Oh no. She's 85." She's an 85-year-old woman. No.
Well,
maybe that's why I have a different look on it, but I'm glad that you agree with me. So that's where they're at. So if you choose to read it, I guess final thoughts. You said you would reread, correct?
Yeah.
Do you want to move forward with the series, correct?
Correct.
Any final yes or no's or should have done, would have done on this?
No, I think we've covered everything.
Okay. So I think covering it for both of us, I don't know if I would reread. Let me rephrase that. I don't know if I would reread. Maybe if Caden was interested in it, sometimes he and I will read books alongside each other, kind of like what you and I just did, so I can better discuss them with him. I would be interested in maybe moving forward, but when you just told me there's 5 or 6 of them, I won't lie. I went, oh. Just because I both love and hate Ransom Riggs's writing.
I think you can. There are 6. There are 6 published. I don't know if there are plans for more.
Does that include the stories book? Are you counting the stories book in that? The one.
Hold on, I'll tell you.
Okay. So while she's looking that up, I still would recommend the book. We're not going to talk about the adaptation too much. What I will say is, it has some big name people in the movie. It's Miss Peregrine's home. It's pretty much the same name. Goes by the exact same name as the book. It follows book 1 pretty okayly, if I remember correctly. I think there
was a lot of changes that I feel should not have been changed. Like the main girl, Emma, her power was different in the movie, and I'm like, how are you going to change her power?
She's the floaty girl in the movie instead, isn't she?
Yeah.
Yeah. Who is a totally separate young lady in the books, who is actually one of the people that come with him to convince his dad everything's okay and show him that they are real. They are 2 separate people. So I don't like that they merged them. I'm with you. There are some big names. I do think the home and the grounds of the home and all of that is exactly how I pictured it.
Yeah.
But overall, if I had to give it 5. Let's say 5. I'll keep it simple. So if I had to give the book a rating out of 5, I'd say 3.5 out of 5 because there's some parts I could have done without.
That's about with me.
Okay.
Real quick.
The movie.
So there are 6 main books in the series with 2, maybe 3 offshoots.
Okay.
So let me explain that. So there's Miss Peregrine, Book 1, Hollow Cities 2, Library of Souls is 3, Map of Days is 4, Conference of the Birds is 5, and Desolation of the Devil's Acre is 6.
Okay.
Now
they're like
the
separate little stories. Yeah.
The offshoots is Tales of the Peculiar.
Yep.
And then there's the graphic novel for Miss Peregrine, and then there's the graphic novel for Hollow City.
Yes. I do recommend the graphic novels. I have not read them, but I have picked them up and thumbed through them. I do really enjoy the artwork on them. So the movie, I would give it a 3 out of 5 if I'm attaching it to the book. Does that make sense?
I would give it a 1.
Okay. So if I'm attaching it to the book, I give it a 3. Well, let me rephrase. Okay, 2.5. 2.5.
I hated the movie personally.
If I'm just watching the movie as this is a Tim Burton movie, it's not from anything. It's not a book. It's just its own thing. I am giving it a little bit higher. But like I said, I remember falling asleep in this twice.
So I got my mom to read this series back when I was reading it, and we were
Really?
both super, super pumped for the movie.
That surprises me.
And we were so disappointed.
Yes.
I've only seen it the one time because I just remember leaving the theater mad.
I think if you separate it, though, that's the thing for me. If you separate it, not knowing what it is, and you just watch it as I'm a huge Tim Burton fan. You know that. Yeah. I love everything Tim Burton. This is one of my least favorite Tim Burton films. But I watched it like you. I had read the book. Clearly, I didn't remember all the book because I wasn't as angry about the changes. Because like I said, I didn't remember everything. So that's why I gave it a 2.5/3. Really can't decide there. But then watching it just on its own entity, thinking of the names that are in it and the things like that, I liked it much more.
Well, I am glad for that.
Yes. I think I will rewatch it though, because now I'm am I giving this more love than it deserves? Awesome.
It's on Disney Plus.
It is on Disney Plus. I was trying to convince Bianca to do a live watch with me because she hated it. She really doesn't want to, but that might be something in our future, especially for next month's pick. Maybe I can get her to do a live watch of that one. But yes.
But speaking of current/future things, what are you currently reading, Miranda?
So currently, I'm doing the thing that you hate, that I do, and I've got multiples going.
Of course you do.
So the ones that I am currently reading, so don't come at me. A lot of people are going to come at me, but there are a lot of TikToks right now in regards to the Queen and her passing. And it was predicted by Nostradamus. And he got it right.
I hope you can hear my eye roll from here.
I can hear your eye roll. I can, because I know a lot of people don't believe in some of the things that I do, and that's okay because we're not all the same people, right?
We are not
supposed to be. But what I love about you is while you eye roll, you still listen to me gush about these things. So,
yeah.
I was familiar with Nostradamus' predictions because, believe it or not, it's something that my grandmother and I both share. She loves those kind of things. Nostradamus, Edgar Cayce, look those up if you're not familiar. But there's a book that I knew nothing about called Nostradamus, The Complete Prophecies for the Future by Mario Ritting. And I had to have it because suddenly all these women were on TikTok and they were like, it's predicted right here. And the author that wrote this, that breaks down Nostradamus' predictions, also kind of explains them more in layman's terms, because if you ever read anything by all those old crooks, Nostradamus and everybody that was alive then, they don't make complete sense sometimes. Because it's
they kind of ramble, or they go off on tangents that really have nothing to do with what they're talking about.
Well, not just that, they use like Old English.
Okay. You're talking about like the actual language they use.
Yeah. They use like Old English and then sometimes even Latin terminology when they're explaining things. So it's not that I believe everything in this book to be true, but I was intrigued. So it's not like I'm not like going through it and like reading it because it doesn't have chapters, anything. It breaks it down by like apparently, and some of them, like I said, are correct, but like I'll just jump to this one because it's where my finger went. So it tells you the subject, which this is religious wars, gives you the date, so in 2043, and it tells you like what time of that it's going to take place, which that I don't entirely understand. And then it says what Nostradamus said, and then it breaks it down, the prediction in current day terms, and then the summary of that. I just found it highly interesting. I did order it from Amazon, German Amazon. So what's really cool about my book is it's one of those like print on demand. Amazon does that now. So my copy was actually printed in Poland. So I thought that was really cool. Like I have like, because that's one of the things I'm doing here is buying books from like UK, German, Slovak kind of things while I'm here.
What was the title of it again?
It's called Nostradamus, The Complete Prophecies for the Future.
Who's it by? Is it by Nostradamus?
No, it's actually by Mario Redding. Because like I said, like it has Nostradamus's prediction, but then it has like the author that wrote it. He explains it in like more modern day terms. Okay. He has been, and people are going to be like, okay, I know, I hear the eye rolls, guys. I hear them. It's okay. I am a little out there and a little on the woo-woo side, and I believe in things that some people don't believe in, and that's okay. But he has gotten some things right. Like there are predictions he made like how many years ago, and they've been true. So I think, some of these probably not really going to happen. There's no way the man got everything right. If he did, we need to reincarnate that, right? Because we need some help. I'm just saying. But I thought it was really interesting, and I had to get a copy. What's really funny is my grandmother is the one that started sending me the TikToks about this book, and so she has ordered it as well.
I love that your grandma's on TikTok.
My grandma is on TikTok. She's fantastic. She doesn't post videos, but she'll send you lots of them. So yeah, I'll share the video with you that she shared with me that made me want to get this book. I think maybe it was the girl's enthusiasm behind it.
I think I've seen it. Is it the one where the girl is just reading when the Queen would die and when Prince Charles would?
Yeah, and she's like, oh.
Yeah.
I may have
several people have sent that to me.
Okay, well, I bought that book that she's holding and that she's talking about. So I'm reading that. I'm just kind of like picking a different day and time because it could be overwhelming. It could be too much for your anxious mind, especially if you like possibly really believe it. And I believe in some ways some of it. I don't believe all of it. There's no way. Because it is like, how many pages here? And it does cite sources. I will say that. There's a cite sources. It's 349 pages. So, or it has an index. I thought it cited sources. It's just an index. Well, pooey. Anyway, I'm reading that. And that's why I have multiple books going, is because this is not something that you just pick up and you just keep reading and keep reading. It's not like chapter by chapter. It's just like incident by incident. Some of them are 1 page. Some of them are 2 or 3 pages. So if you are intrigued, whether you believe it or not, I recommend it. I think it's kind of just a cool, what I call coffee table book, meaning like it brings conversation. A coffee table book is just a book that if you had it on your table, it would bring conversation. It would spark a conversation of some sort. So I bought it, and I have this really cool printed in Poland edition. So that's neat. A little kooky, but it's neat. I'm also reading, which I keep wanting to text you about this one. It's from Disney Hyperion. It's called City of Villains by Estelle Laure, Laure. So maybe Laure? I'm not sure. And it's set in this world where magic is gone right now. Everyone in the book has a well-known Disney name. The mayor is Mayor Triton, but it's a female. One of the side characters is Ursula. There's Ursula, there's Smee, there's Jack, who's essentially Captain Hook, is her boyfriend. They're in high school. She works for the police department as an intern, and affluential people like her who are considered legacies, so meaning Ursula, Smee, people that would have had magic, right, are going missing. And it started with a girl named Mally Saint, which I believe to either be Maleficent's daughter or just Maleficent, because they keep talking about how her mother was a fairy queen and she's no longer. So it's very intriguing. It's YA. That's where it was at. Kind of like the book that we just discussed together. Also YA, but has a lot of tinges of but is this? Because they describe some there's body parts that keep randomly showing up around town.
Okay, I have a question.
You have a question. Okay.
I looked up the City of Villains book. The cover of it, it looks like a graphic novel. It's a regular book?
It is a regular book. The cover does, yeah, I could see where the cover would give you graphic novel vibes, yeah. But no, it's a chapter book. It's not super long either. It's 240 pages, roughly. 228. And normally I blow through a book, and this has all the potential for me to blow through it. But for some reason, I read a chapter and then I put it down because it just keeps leaving me to think about things. So I'm halfway through it, really enjoy it. I would already recommend it. That's why I keep meaning to text you about it. I think you might really like it. There's a lot going on, though, especially for such a short book, 228 pages.
So you pull a Ransom Riggs and put everything in one chapter?
They're not, and then they are, if that makes sense. Also inconsistent with the length of chapters, but not Ransom Riggs style. She's running around with the actual detective from the police department because now they've asked her, hey, since these kids are your age, we want you to help solve this. The lady she's running around with is essentially Bill. It's Bill.
Okay. Yeah.
Who keeps having to ward off. She was working with a partner who was Gaston. She didn't like him, but she wouldn't tell him no. This girl just told her off, told Gaston off, and was she's never going to go to dinner with you. Leave her alone. So I like all of the parallels. I like that it is actually Disney people, and Disney gave them the permission to do this because it is written for the print house, Disney Hyperion.
Yeah.
But there are some very adult themes going on here. A lot of them go hang out at this dance club all alone without parents called Wonderland. There's, like I said, there's body parts randomly showing up that I haven't gotten to it yet, but it seems like it's probably all tied together. Teenage children are going missing. It's a lot, but I really enjoy it. I'm just afraid that we're going to hit a point where everything's going to be crammed really quickly into a chapter. I do know that there is a second book because I didn't realize when I was at the library the other day, I grabbed book 2 just thinking it was another cool Disney Hyperion book, and it is actually book 2 of the book I already had at home. So there's that. I do recommend, even though I'm only at chapter 11, which is about halfway through. Final 3, I'll be really quick on. A Babysitter's Guide to Monster Hunting, Beasts and Geeks. It's actually number 2 by Joe Ballerini. I read number 1. I think I told you about it. It is in the YA section, but I would consider it more middle grade. But it's actually fantastic. They did turn it into an adaptation, but I haven't watched it yet. And the reason I like getting the actual book is there are every now and then illustrations or cutouts from her Babysitter's Guide that explain the monster or something from the book. So I do highly recommend, if you're one of those people that usually pick audio, I'd pick the in my hands version because that it adds to the book. It's really cool. It's also fast. I devoured it in like just a few hours. But it's number 2, so really good. He's doing a great job at continuing the series, and he is an excellent world builder. Fantastic. I would probably move forward with reading anything this man writes. This one is a comic, technically, Lumberjanes. Lumberjanes. I believe Susan and James have read it, or I think James has. I can't be positive on that one. It's Lumberjanes to the Max edition, which essentially it's volume 1. So what that is it's like the first 10 issues, I think, put together in one book. My library actually had it, so I was super excited. I read the first 2 issues when they originally came out. And then I don't remember what happened, but I stopped getting the issues. I wasn't disinterested. I just, I think that's a point in my life where I was like, I have too many back issues. I want to wait until the volumes come out. And then I just kind of forgot. It's fantastic. If you love comics at all, I would highly pick it up. I call it a cross between, if you've seen like Gravity, it's like Gravity Falls meets Buffy meets, I read an article that said it was like, Buffy meets Twin Peaks. The reason I don't like Buffy meets Twin Peaks is because Twin Peaks is very adult. If you've ever done anything with Twin Peaks, which I do love, it's one of my favorite things. But it's more to me, Gravity Falls meets Buffy the Vampire Slayer meets Nancy Drew.
Okay. That's
very entertaining.
Mix. Yeah.
It's very entertaining. It does all take place at a camp. It's Miss Quinzella Thisquistle I can't even say it. Pinnacle Thistle Crumpets Camp for Hardcore Lady Types, and their slogan is "Friendship to the Max." So it's also
a mouthful.
It is a mouthful. Like I can't even entirely say it properly. Somebody's gonna be like, "That's not how you say it." I know it's not. When you pull it up, you're even gonna be like, "What the what?" Highly recommend. Fantastic. Get it in the volume so that you can see the alternative covers, because there are multiple women that worked on this together. And so in the back of this, you get to see like all of them's different art styles, because all of them initially actually do have a different art style. So it's really neat. Highly recommend. And I had read somewhere that this might be turned into a television series. In my opinion, I would like to see it as a cartoon series. I'm just going to say it.
Yes, I pulled up the cover and it reminds me of, what's it called? The one with Elijah Wood.
Oh, Over the Hedge.
Yeah, Over the Hedge.
You could definitely get some of that. There's a lot of things it reminded me of as I was reading it. It also kind of reminded me of like Adventure Time, some of the crap that Jake and Finn get into. There's a mythological aspect to it as well. I don't know. It's super cool. If you are a person, I know some people are like, but I just can't read comics or graphic novels. I understand that. I get it. If you can, absolutely pick this up. And you'd be surprised. Check with your library. My library had it. And the last book is actually it's a nonfiction, which, I don't read a whole lot of. It's Outdoor Kids in an Inside World by Steven Ranella. I love him. He has a show on Netflix called Meat Eater, where normally I don't like shows that have anything to do with like hunting or fishing or anything. That's just not my jam, even though I did hunt and fish growing up. But what I love about his show is it's not like, oh, I'm going to go kill this. Woohoo, we got it. He explains like how to ethically do that. And how to, like in one episode, he hits the animal. He knows he did, but he can't find it. The blood trail stops. So he turns his tag into the game warden and says, technically, I know I hit one. So it's not fair to, go out and get another one. Like, it's not fair. And then at the end of the show, they actually cook and prepare and explain like all the different meals you can make out of it. So he does it as a like source of food and explaining people how to do it correctly and properly if you are going to do that. You're not just out there doing it to put a buck on the wall. Like, here's why you do it. And so he is actually, before he got started in stuff like that, he's a journalist. And I came across this book. I saw the title at the library and was just interested in it. I'm always interested in finding ways of how we can get Caden out of the house more. So it's outdoor kids in an inside world, getting your family out of the house and radically engaged with nature. I love nature, so I want him to love it. And it just happens to be by Steven Ranella. He's a fantastic writer. He has a couple other books. I actually own 2 of his cookbooks, which also are fantastic reads. You and I have talked about this before. A lot of cookbooks actually have stuff to read in them besides
they have good little blurbs.
They do. So yeah, if that sounds like something up your alley, I'm halfway through. I'm on a chapter about foraging and building a foraging habit. So maybe it's for you, maybe it's not. I highly recommend, though. He's a great writer. So that's where I'm at. That's a lot too.
Well, I am only reading one at the moment. However, I am being festive because this it just started Hispanic Heritage Month.
Yes.
So I wanted to read something along those lines. Which, if you've known me this year, you know that I absolutely loved Mexican Gothic.
I've heard nothing but amazing things about it.
It was so good. So I wanted to explore more Latin or Hispanic authors anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Just from reading that, there was a lot of Mexican lore, or for lack of a better word, fairy tales involved in Mexican Gothic. And it just made me realize that I am not that familiar with that culture. So I'm trying to educate myself. So I am currently reading
like fairy tales from other cultures, because they do vary. Like the Irish may have a banshee, and the Hispanics may have a banshee, but they're like based in different lore. So I do think that's interesting.
But in the vein of that, I am reading The Inheritance of Orquídea Divina by Zoraida Cordova. I'm a little over halfway, and I'll probably finish it in the next couple of days. It's a pretty easy read, but the premise is that Orquídea Divina started out as a normal person, but along the way, magic got involved in her life. I'm not going to say that she is magical, but things happen around her that are out of her control, and that's all we really know so far. But it's called The Inheritance of Orquídea Divina because the whole premise of the book is that she dies. Like, the very first page, I want to read it word for word because that's what drew me in. I say first page and then I have to flip through it. Okay. So the first page of the book is just called chapter 0. It's the invitation. You are invited to my home on May 14th, the year of the hummingbird. Please begin to arrive no earlier than 1:04 p.m., as I have many matters to settle before the event. The stars have shifted, the earth has turned, the time is here, I am dying. Come and collect your inheritance. Eternally, Orquídea Divina Montoya.
Ooh. Yeah, that would grab me as well.
Yeah. So I borrowed it from one of my graduate assistants. I'm a little over halfway. It gives me, if you've seen Encanto, it gives me strong Encanto vibes. Like this magical house where stuff happens and everyone kind of has an ability that they can't really control and stuff like that.
We like houses with abilities, apparently.
So yeah, right now I recommend it. I probably give it a 3.5 or a 4 right now. When I finish it, I'll report back in our next podcast. I'll do a couple that I have read since we last recorded. Yeah, I did finish the Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires by Grady Hendrix.
I do want to read that one, yes.
The ending threw me for a loop. I was not prepared for the graphic details that I encountered because the rest of the book was not that graphic. So just a little forewarning for those who want to read it. I still give it a 4 out of 5. It was well written, a great story, just a little graphic at the end. By graphic, I mean like gory.
Okay.
I read I'm Glad My Mom Died by Jeanette McCurdy.
Oh, I want to read that one too.
It was so good. Like, I think we all know Jet McCurdy. She was on iCarly for many, 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 many years on Nickelodeon. And it's her life story. And you're like, how does she have a life story? She's only like late 20s, early 30s. I forget how old she is. That girl's been through a lot.
Yes.
And like, we all kind of know child stars are kind of abused in the industry and stuff like that. But what she went through, she doesn't deserve half the hate she gets. Okay.
Mm-mm.
I think I gave that a 5-star. I don't remember. If I didn't, it was like a 4.5. I don't think I gave it a 5 just because of the stuff that was involved, like her life. But it was very well written. And she personally narrates the audiobook, I want to say. So if you want to pick up the audio,
I believe so.
Miranda, and let me know how that goes. Then I read, y'all don't hate me, I read Lightlark.
I don't hate you. I do want to read it as well. And we won't go into that it might be something we discuss later, but just look it up. This is apparently, like, I had to go to Bianca and say, I understand there's controversy, but I don't understand. It's all over Book Talk. It's all over Instagram. Like, people either hate this girl or they love her. And then a lot of people are, I've saw on Book Talk, a lot of people are basically hate reading her book, which,
well, they're doing like they do on like IMDb or Rotten Tomatoes, where they go and review it without having read it just to tank the reviews.
Yes.
Just because they don't like her.
But that's a known thing that happens also on Goodreads, or that's like that's been a problem for years. That's why some authors are getting away from like doing Goodreads in general. But here's the thing. I still don't entirely understand the controversy. So if one of you can break it down for me. Somebody tried to, and I still didn't get it.
I think I tried to one day.
You did, and I understood what you were saying, but even you were like, I don't entirely get all this either. Like,
yeah,
there's a lot of it. It like came out of nowhere. Like, I've been following this girl for about a year or so on Instagram. I've been super interested in following her pathway, and then all of a sudden one day I log on to TikTok and it's like, we hate her. She's just, and I'm like, what?
So that was my entire For You page for like a week. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to buy it and support this girl for all the hate she's getting.
Yeah, so there are a lot of people that are buying it because they're like, well, I don't understand why people are hating her. And then other people are buying it because they're like, well, now I have to read it because I voiced my opinion that she's a piece of crap. And so just let me briefly, if you've ever listened to Geek and Sassy, I go into a tirade on hate watching because I had a whole group of my friends, you know who you are, that were hate watching Riverdale. And I was like, guys, this is how you keep a show going. You do understand that if you hate it and you think it's dumb, watching it is only giving it more viewership, right? So the same thing with her book. She's only getting more book sales if you are hate buying it.
Yeah.
I'm just saying. But
well,
you should support an author and buy it if you want.
I bought it from Barnes & Noble. I got the very last first edition copy that they had because they had a special Barnes & Noble edition that they printed. I absolutely loved it. It was peak YA fantasy. It was great. It has been opted for an adaptation. That means
already.
Yeah. It was opted before it got printed, which is not totally unheard of, but that's what some of the controversy stems from. But it has been opted. There's no written script or cast or anything. Opted just means that it's out there and someone can pick it up. But absolutely loved it. It was a fantastic story. It's a generic girl has the one ability to save the world type story.
Mm-hmm.
And it was very YA. Up until the very, very last 4 or 5 pages.
Is that what you texted me about? And
yes.
You were like, whoa, it went into Bianca No-No territory, as I call it.
Super fast. And that was the bonus chapter, I believe, that Barnes & Noble included that's not in other editions, which I find to be very weird. I could be wrong on that. I will double check. But that last chapter, I was like, whoa. Because, like I said, it's YA, and normally stuff like that is not in YA. And it had been very innocent up until that point. So, like 300 pages of just general teenage shenanigans. And then, bam, sex scene. Very graphic sex scene.
Okay, tell me, I could be wrong, but Miss Sarah J. Maas, she has one book series that I believe actually is always over in YA, but it does have very graphic, or sort of graphic. I don't want to, but it has celebrations, aka sexy times, in them. So, I mean, I know they do it in YA, but do you think
they do? But it's normally not like that. Like it's more alluded to, like they kiss and then they go into a room and
it's closed door, like Cozy Mysteries.
Yeah,
I
this
really do
was
think
very like written out, detailed, and that's not normally what YA is.
I think we're at I think we're at a time period though where things are shifting in the YA world a little. Because we've talked about this, and this may have been a private conversation we had. I apologize, but we talked about before how there really was no like mid-grade YA. It was just like, here were books based on these ages, right? And I don't know when it happened. I'd have to look up at what point we started saying, well, these are mid-grade and these are YA. But I feel like there's a new shift happening in the YA world where it's not quite adult, or what they call new adult. I've seen advertised. But it's like a fine line between adult and YA. And I think if you give it a few more years, it's going to have a name. It's going to be like its own genre or a subgenre of YA, where it's like where YA and an adult meet. Because let's face it, teenagers are doing celebrations. Those things are happening. Like everybody knows. Not all teenagers, so don't come at me. Not all teenagers, but a lot of teenagers are experimenting with the adult sexy times. So it doesn't surprise me that would come up in a YA book. But it's like, where's the line?
Well, I wouldn't have been so surprised if the book had been more toned that way. Like I said, it was literally just a fun YA fantasy, save the world kind of read. And then that very last chapter, it felt very out of place and more there for just shock factor, which I'm not a big fan of to begin with.
Mm-hmm. Oh, kind of like, I know, because you do read romance, you just don't read the ones that go into the level that I do. So is it kind of the shock factor of like when you read a romance and suddenly there's the epilogue of the surprise baby?
Yeah, kind of, sort of. Which
I don't care for. Like, yeah. I don't hate. Some women hate, and they won't, like, if they know that's there, they won't even read the book. But I don't love when you try to close out a person's story by being like, epilogue. And then you give us like a whole nother chapter of, and they got married and had a baby. And I'm like, what?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But Lightlark is listed as number 1, so I'm assuming there will be more, especially with the way it ended.
I believe on Instagram she said that there were multiple books, like before Lightlark actually ever came out. Like when I told you, like, oh yeah, I've been following her for a while. I believe she has always said that would be a couple books. I just don't remember if it was just 2 or what.
Yeah. But yeah, that's my roundup for the last few weeks. Do you have anything else to add?
I would just like to add a bit of encouragement, actually. So before I came down to record, I screenshotted something from my local library, my military Europe library. And they are doing a banned book week next week, so September 18th through whatever the end of the week is. I don't know. Obviously, we pre-record this, so most of the time when you listen to us, we're probably about 5 days behind or so. But they're doing it this week, so the week they're recording right now, the 18th through the 24th. So I just wanted to encourage. I don't know if that's like happening everywhere all over the country in
No,
the US.
it's a U.S. thing.
Okay.
It's done by
figured.
the ALA, American Library Association. Every third week of September
That's
is
it. Okay.
Banned Book Week.
I thought so. I knew it was coming soon because it's usually around back to school. So it is taking place September 18th through the 24th, which is currently right now because we are recording on the 19th. So I just wanted to encourage everyone to pick up a banned book or maybe share a book that you love so much that is considered banned on your socials or just with a friend or whatever it may be, the best place for you. There was the list that they recommended from my library. I actually had not even heard of most of them, which shocked me. But they were doing like these are the top 10 most challenged titles in the last year, according to the American Library Association. I won't list them all because then poor Bianca and I have to list every single one of them in the show notes. I'm sure you could look that up and look at the top 10 most challenged titles last year by the American Library Association. But I would highly recommend finding a banned book, maybe looking up why people wanted to ban it, reading it, and then making the decision for yourself. Would you ban it? Or would you ban it from your child? Because that's what banned books usually take place. They usually are being banned inside the school system, inside the school library, or sometimes just in a community itself. But mainly it's more taking place of like, it's not allowed in the school library. We won't read it in the school. The school board doesn't allow it. One that I just bought, Caden, that I was super excited to actually find. I found it here in Germany, in English, on the shelf, which is huge because it was Mouse, which is a graphic novel that explains basically the story of Hitler and World War II and what was actually taking place with using mice. And I was very shocked that I found that here of all places.
UWF actually hosted the author of Mouse a few weeks ago.
I would have loved to have just watched that live if they had a live stream, but I saw that before I came down here, actually while I was like scrolling, getting my stuff together. And I thought I just wanted to encourage everybody to do that. Like maybe you've read a book that's on the banned book list. I was surprised by how many were on the banned book list that I consider books that I really love or that I remember reading. And yeah, either I enjoyed them or I didn't. But Mouse is a big one. I've been wanting to get it for Caden for a couple years, but when all the controversy came out around it being banned, it suddenly was very hard to find. You couldn't buy a copy of it anywhere. So I did pick one up the other day. I actually read it and I don't really remember reading it. So it was actually a great opportunity for me to reread it. So with that, do you have a banned book you would like people to read? What's one that, like, off the top of your head, banned book that you're like, yeah, that's my banned book?
Harry
Potter. That's, you know what? That is very true. Harry Potter.
It's always in the top 3 of whatever list.
It is. I could go into why that is, but I'm sure most of you, especially if you grew up in the South, know why. It's not really warranted. I get a lot of kind of flack for the book that I like. I understand the book is problematic. Okay, I really do. But one of my favorite all-time banned books is To Kill a Mockingbird.
Yeah. It's always on the list, too.
It's always on the list. I understand why people want to ban it, but I think the problematic things inside the book itself are why we shouldn't ban it and why we should read it and make sure history doesn't repeat itself. I know it's a fictional book, but it's based on real things like that really happened to people, during that time. So I think banning books is stupid. So I know every time we sign off, we always tell you to go out and read and enjoy. But this week, I'd like to add that you go out, read, and enjoy a banned book. And like I said, share it. Share with us, too. If you choose to read a banned book or you have a favorite banned book, send it over to us. And maybe I'll shout them out next time. But until then, Bianca, do you have anything that you would like to share with people? Where can they find you? Where are you comfortable with them finding you? And what do you have coming up?
You can find me on Instagram. I am at Stylin' Freak. I post numerous things there. Sometimes they're memes, sometimes they're selfies, sometimes they're cat things. So if you want randomness of my life, yeah, there's a lot of cooking stuff.
A lot of cooking.
Follow me there. I am on Goodreads. I believe my page is public on Goodreads. I don't know.
I think it is. I shared it with Ellen because she wanted to be friends with you and I. So
okay.
I think it is.
And then you can also find me on TikTok. I think I'm just at Bianca Jimerson on there.
I think you are. I'm not sure. If I open the app, it'll be loud. So it immediately starts playing. Can't help it.
And what about you, Miranda? Where can we find you?
So I am over on the Instagram always. My handle is not actually at Mom's a Nerd, but if you type in Mom's a Nerd, you do get me as your first option. But my handle on TikTok, which I have not broke into the book talk yet because I'm nervous because they are they're ruthless. They are the most caring, sweet, wonderful community that is also the most ruthless, conniving, judgmental people in the world. They are the best community and also a little terrifying. So I've not broken into book talk, but I do post like travel things, cities we go to, rides on trains, cooking. Not as much cooking as Bianca because it takes a lot to make a cooking TikTok. Like a whole lot.
It does.
It's like multiple clips and yeah, anyway. So there's that. I'm also on Goodreads. I think you can just look me up as Miranda Berthold. Yeah. Of course, you can find me all over Place to Be Nation here on the Place to Be Facebook group. We have a lot of things going on right now. We are in the midst of finishing up the tournament for the greatest, what is it? It's not cartoon, but Andy's going to kill me. My brain has gone dead. It is late, boys and girls. But it's a tournament to try to figure out which is the greatest animated film. Animated film! There we go. God, words are hard. Greatest animated film. There's a lot of discussion over there. Bianca and I are going to try to bring more book discussion to that group, or I am at least. But there's also music and wrestling and so much more. And it's a great hub to get to all of the podcast feeds that our family is a part of here. That's pretty much for it, though. I would highly encourage you. Yes, we are part of a feed, but if you could leave a review for the feed or even just our show on whatever app you listen to us, that would be fantastic, and it would get more people to hear us that love books as well. So as always, keep reading, come back and listen again, and hope you have a great week.